Walking alone is a way to ease your mind, but what would you do about the shadows that lurk behind? Don't be afraid of the dark, for this is Tales from Around the Campfire. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Tales from Around the Campfire, Season 1, of course, and Episode 14. One more episode to go. And you know what? We're going to go out with the banger. Oh, yes. We're going to be reading some creepypastas today. Because yesterday's creepypasta stories were pretty good. I liked them. I went back into the creepypasta page, and I got a couple, So without any further ado, getting ready. I'm getting set up, cozying up in this campfire of ours, and we're gonna be reading a couple stories. So here we go. This first story comes from the same website, creepypasta.com, and it's called Floor Zero, written by Gabe Holvey. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. It has, it's a 6.57 out of 10 stars, I guess. But yes, and its estimated reading time is 4 minutes, and like we always say, we'll see about that. You finally done it. After weeks of digging around and bugging the lady at the front desk, you found it. The elevator code for floor zero. You make your way to the nearest elevator, trying your hardest to contain your excitement. You've been told so many rumors about the place that you weren't sure if they were even fiction. Some say it was a dark room full of spider webs. Some say it was full of old mannequins. Some say it was just a storage floor with nothing interesting to see. You entered the elevator, your mind flooded with expectations. You enter the code into the keypad, and the elevator begins to descend. The elevator continues to descend for nearly 20 seconds, which was strange considering you started on the base floor. As the elevator doors open, you immediately hit with the temperature. It's hot, but unbearably so, but noticeable. Once the doors are fully open, you take a step out. There's nothing to see. The walls are faded yellow color, and half of white wallpaper lining the bottom. The carpet is of the same sickening hue and reek of age. The worst part, however, is the light. In terms of color, it's just like the rest of the room, but they're flickering in an unusual rhythmic way. The humming drone on at a steady pace as if it will never stop. The sight is untriggering, though somewhat unnerving. You take a few more steps and then realize that there is a hallway leading out to the room. You begin to approach the hallway, but then hesitate. You feel a sense of unease, but your curiosity gets the better of you and continue down the hall. The hallway ends at a room much like the one that you started in, but with a small difference. The walls are laid out differently, and there is an opening leading to another hallway to the right. You continue down the hallway until you reach another room. This one is somewhat larger than the other two and has a higher ceiling. However, there's also a couch with the same dreadful yellow tinge sitting on the side. You examine the couch, not daring to touch it. It smells like it hasn't been used in for years, but seems to have no dust at all. Now that you think of it, there's no dust anywhere, none at all. This realization unnerves you even more, but yet again, your curiosity trumps it, and you walk further into the room. As you reach the end of the room, you confronted with a choice: a fork in the path, two different hallways leading different directions. You think for a moment and choose the left path, but as you begin to enter the hallway, something makes you jump. Throughout your trek through each part of the strange series of rooms, there has been no sound, nothing but the droning of light and your footsteps in the carpet. That is up until this point. You hear a slight sound of movement, just the slightest bump, but it's enough to make you jump and spin around rapidly. As you analyze your surroundings, you feel as if something is off. You can't say what, but this feeling is enough to get you to turn around. You make your way across the room, extremely anxious after the noise. As you reach the other side of the room, you realize two things. First, the droning noise has stopped. Secondly, the old couch has gone missing. These two things are enough to make you afraid. You're genuinely terrified of these rooms as you quickly turn to the hallway that leads up to the exit. You stop dead in your tracks. The hallway is pitch black. You can't even see the room at the end of it. It is dark as well. You're left you're left with only two options. Either you continue down the corridors leading towards the other side of the room and hope that you find your way out, or you risk traversing the pitch black hallway and feel your way back to the elevator. As you ponder the decision, your time quickly becomes limited. As the light at the other end of the room goes out, you decide on option A and run blindly into the dark hallway. As you reach the back of the room, suddenly the lights come back on. As your eyes adjust to the light, you notice that the droning of the lights has returned as well. You'd almost feel better if it weren't for one thing. There's no exit in the room. You look around again, making sure that you weren't going crazy. But sure enough, they're gone. But how, you think? You enter this room through one, right? Right? You rack your brain trying to think of how this may have happened, scanning the room over and over. You examine each hallway, each wall, checking in case an optical illusion caused by some similar to the walls, but alas, no luck. Once again, you check them all. You turn to the hall, and you just enter to find that it's gone as well. As you see this, you're brought to your knees and nearly start to cry. You're trapped. There's no escape. Tears fill your eyes as you cry out in anguish. You sit in a silence with your eyes shut for a good 2 minutes, only to find once you open your eyes again, the exits have returned. You stand up slowly, not daring to take your eyes off of the way at this time. You slowly make your way down the hallway into the room you started in. As you reach the elevator, you quickly press the button. It only took about 30 seconds for the elevator to reach you, but at the time it seemed like hours. As the doors open, you hastily get inside and press the button for your floor. As you reach your destination, you breath a sigh of relief. Your face is streaked with tears, and you're exhausted and still terrified over what you just went through. But you're relieved. You never did tell anyone about Floor Zero. Maybe because you thought it was a dream, or maybe you were going insane. But maybe, just maybe, suddenly you recall what you saw as the elevator doors closed. As they shut behind you, you turned and saw nothing. Nothing unusual, that is. Just a normal looking storage floor, somewhat dimly lit. What was unusual was that everything else, the yellow light walls and the carpet, had all seemingly vanished in an instant. The worst part, however, was when you noticed something that made your situation much worse. Through the crack of the elevator door, just before it closed for the last time, you got one last look at what you could swear was the faint outline of something in the corner. Something slowly moving in your direction. This was credit. All credit goes to Gabe, um, Hubby. I still don't know how to pronounce your last name. I do apologize. But Gabe, that was an interesting story. Floor Zero. You know, you go into an apartment store. You think, hey, I'm gonna have myself a good time. You know, just to get trapped. It's just like the that creepy pasta, the back rooms, right? I believe they're called. I haven't read that one, but I've seen videos of what happens when you're in the back rooms, and I know enough to just stay calm. Take deep breaths, don't leave the site where you came from or something like that, and don't listen to the walls or something like that. I don't know, but you know, it is the back rooms is it's a pretty interesting creepypasta, and Floor Zero is is somewhat um like relatable, I guess, to to the back rooms, I guess, So good stuff. Good stuff. This next one is called I Grew Up, written by Samantha Miyake. Listen, I do apologize if I am butchering your last name. But Samantha, here we go. I Grew Up, right? 7.85 out of 10 stars on this story, and its estimated reading time is 8 minutes. We'll see about that. My father died from pulmonary hypertension when I was only 4 years old. I still remember the night he had a heart attack, watching him, watching him from the third floor window of my great grandmother's bedroom as he was wheeled on a stretcher across the driveway. Well, I still remember the bare and twisted trees in the front yard and their shadows creeping like eerie tendrils across the lawn. This has little to do with the story I am about to tell, but it illustrates a point to all those who have questioned my validity in the past. My memories of early childhood have always been very clear, especially during the time of loss in my life. This is not something I imagined. This is not a memory that is vague for me. If I can remember that fateful night, I am sure that I am remembering this perfectly. The real story starting in the middle of October, not long before I lost my father. Halloween was my favorite day of the year, and the entire month leading up to it was always a time of excitement. This would be the night where I would lay awake in bed, thrilled by the thought of dressing up as a cat for the third year in a row, and what have you. One night in particular, after my mom stuck her head in my bedroom and scolded me for being up, I forced myself to close my eyes and attempt to drift off. I was almost there, just on the edge of sleep, when I heard the door slowly creak ajar. Being a clever kid, I thought it was my mom and kept my eyes closed while figning cartoon snoring. Oh, faking cartoon snoring. Snores that, in reality, she totally would not buy. It was my assumption that my mom would eventually leave, satisfied that I had finally nodded off. But instead, the door creaked even wider and heavy footsteps began to trot into the bedroom. Eventually, I dared to peek with one eye open to see what was going on. What I saw was not my mom at all, but a monster. He was by no means scary. In fact, he was kind of cute, covered entirely of thick orange fur. He towered over my bed and with a wide grin and of pointy teeth. Two gnarled ram horns sat on either side of his head, and due to his size, they almost scraped against the ceiling. The monster did not acknowledge my sleeping little brother in the bed across the room. Instead, he held a clawed hand out for me to take. I'm not sure why I thought it was okay, but I accepted his gesture and placed my tiny palm within his, and held it tightly. Slowly, he led me across the room and towards the blank space of wall where my mother had been attending to put some sort of wicker furniture. I watched in curiosity as the orange monster gently scraped the wide door shape against the wallpaper with his claw, and in an instant a gateway had appeared. Still, leading me to the utmost care, he stepped through it, and we were engulfed in a bright flash of lights that forced me to squint. As it faded and my eyes adjusted, I found that we were no longer in my bedroom. We were in what I can only assume to be his world, and it was a world that I marveled at. A cobblestone marketplace stretched on before us, filled with stands and carts mined by every kind of monster you could picture. Witches crackled from a booth full of frothing potions, and they gave me candy corn as we passed by them. Vampires chilled beneath the shade of a awning selling decorative vials of blood that glowed like absent stained glass. There were werewolves, skeletons, mummies, and so much more, all of them busy preparing for Halloween, and all of them very friendly. Making our way through the market seemed to take hours, but eventually led out into a wide park filled with trees and another glimmering gateway at his entrance. My monster guided me through, and after exchanging a warm embrace, he ushered me through the gates and gave me a cheerful wave goodbye. Then I woke up in my bed. My brother was still asleep, soundly across the room, and the blank wall was back being blank. During breakfast, I told my family the wild tale. My mom reached the way you'd expect for of a mother of a 4-year-old to react to some made-up story. My dad smiled weakly. It was a dream, and I figured that at the end of it, but it had been such an exciting one. I guess I could have had it all over again. 1 year later, my wish came true. It was in the middle of October again, and though it was still an exciting time, I no longer had trouble sleeping. But once again, one night I woke up at the creak of the bedroom door and I opened my eyes to see my orange monster shuffling into the bedroom with a sheepish smile. I sprang out of bed to meet him, and yet again he drew the doorway on the wall with a claw and took me to his world. Everyone was excited to see me, and all of them remembered my name. The witches gave me candy again, and the vampires hissed hellos. It went to the same way as the last dream, winding through the busy marketplace until we reached the gates at the park and bid each other farewell. The next year, I had to dream again, and the year after that again. It started to become my yearly Halloween tradition that only I knew about. It wasn't until I was 11 that the dreams began to change. That year, none of the monsters in the marketplace seemed happy to see me. They gave me and my orange monster stern looks as we passed, whispering in a hushed voice that I could not understand. There was no candy for me, no greetings or smiles. It was an unnerving trip, and I think that my monster knew this, for he began to pick up his pace and was quick to lead me to the park. When I was 13, the marketplace became a hostile environment. All the kind creatures I had come to know for almost a decade shouted in harsh voices. They pointed with bony fingers, spitting angrily, and ordering us to leave. For the first time, a monster actually picked me up and carried me through, not stopping until I was safe at the gateway. I was 16 when dreams finally became nightmares. My monster had come for me, like he always did for each year, but something about him was different. His plush orange fur had grown thin and wispy, and his ram horns had various chips and cracks in them. He still held his hand out to take me to the doorway, but that was a grave mistake. We were chased through the market, bitten and clawed and slashed at. My ears were filled with whispers loud enough to drown in, but nobody's mouth were even moving at it almost seemed like they were being spoken in tongues. I was too big for my monster to carry, but I let him up. I let him pull me along the park. The other creatures followed us all the way to the gateway, not leaving any time for goodbyes. I was shoved through and woke up, drenched in sweat in my bedroom. 17. My monster was a shadow of what he once was when he came to collect me. There was no chasing in this dream, no sense of imminent danger. There was, however, a massive dread that hung over as we all ambled through the cobblestone marketplace. The creatures stopped still in their booth, black holes in place of their eyes and mouth. They turned and stared as we passed through, they otherwise motionless. My monster had to stop often to catch his breath before we made it to the park. Before I entered the gate, I enveloped him in my arms and squeezed him tight, like I had done as a child. He looked at me with sadness in his eyes, but grinned with those big teeth, and ushered me forward like he always did. When I woke up, I found my eyes were wet with tears. The next year, I wondered if perhaps I would have the dream again. It was very late into October, much later than usual, and I had yet to dream my dream. On Halloween night, after late night partying with my friends, I dreamed in a daze that someone was clawing at my wall. I got out of bed and moved cautiously across the floor. To see the light-filled doorway to my monster's world was wide open. My bedroom door, on the other hand, was shut, and I was completely alone. I went through the gateway myself, wondering if perhaps he was waiting on the other side again. Again, I was met with with change, and I found the long cobblestone streets was empty, void of all structure and life. The only thing that accompanied me was a long smear of dark brown blood and the scattering of what I could only assume to be flesh. There was a horrible rotten smell that made me cover my nose with the collar of my pajamas and forced me to make my familiar walk with trembling legs. For hours, I walked. My bare feet slipped in blood and gore, staining my toes and making me shudder. I called out, but was only met with the sound of the wind whispering through the streets as the marketplace ended and gave birth to the park. I came to a halt and my stomach churned violently. There were corpses in my path of the witches and vampires, the werewolves and monsters. They were mangled, horribly disfigured, and discarded in piles carelessly. No longer were they eyeless or cruel looking, but the friendly creatures I'd imagined when I was very young. I was sleeping through the blood, more flesh, and was now dodging bodies and bloody bits of candy underfoot. Straight ahead was the gate of the park, and standing before them was a familiar sight. The recognizable shape of my monster was waiting for me, but his back was turned. His fur was also very patchy. I noticed revealing a muscular gray body that bulged and twitched with veins. The closer I drew, the better I could hear his deep, raspy breath. He did not turn to face me, but instead seemed hunched over something. My foot connected with the limb and tripped, yelping in surprise. The voice that came from my mouth was higher, though, sounding much younger than that of an 18-year-old's. The sudden cry made the monster freeze and slowly turn to face me. In his claws, he had held the dismantled remains of some sort of corpse. Its stinging brown blood stained his fur. When he saw me, he grinned with a new set of razor-sharp teeth. The smell of decay breathed out of his mouth, and I found myself gawking at the bits of flesh that dangled in between his fangs. I was a child then, drowning in my adult pajamas and feeling my eyes well up in tears. I stumbled back to put space between us and choked back a tiny sob when he reached out for my hand. "Why?" I pleaded, overtaken with fear as he drew up to much higher height and loomed over me. "Because," he answered. It was the first time I had heard his voice, yet I knew he did not sound that way. He spoke in a low, rumbling, wrong and inhuman like something ancient and not of this world. "Because you grew up." Again, he held his hand out with splayed open claws, but I did not take it. I shoved them away and went scurrying over the bodies below, making my way towards the gateway as quickly as I could. I woke up in my room with my mother standing over me, demanding to know why I was screaming in my sleep and if I needed to go to the hospital. I'm 23 now, and haven't had the dream since. And if I'm being honest, I don't think I ever will. I still think about them from time to time, musing about it to my husband and friends. They always shake their heads at me, laughing and reminding me that nobody remembers things like that at such young age. It must have been one of them dreams, although all thought up at once and made to feel as though it had been recurring. But I know that's not the case. I remember. I still remember. Credit goes to Samantha Miyake. Miyake. Look, listen, I do apologize for your last name, man. Samantha, this was a great story. Oh my God, I got chills. Why? I'll tell you why as soon as I find, like, if as soon as I can go back to the website. But that's all part of growing up, I guess. Um, our imaginations just stop working, right? We go to a job from 9 to 5 or from whatever time, um, and then you just become adults, right? I mean, I I want to say I haven't lost my imagination, you know, because I'm an artist, and without imagination, me as an artist, I wouldn't be able to draw anything. You know, my imagination has to um, work over time. You know what I mean? And ever since I was a kid, you know, ever since I was 3 years old, my imagination has been with me ever since, or ever since I could remember. Actually, not 3 years old. My bad. Um, but this story pretty much portrays on what it means to be an adult. You know, as a kid, you have innocent thoughts, you have your imaginations running wild, you know. And if you grew up back then without your internet, the phones, and the tablets, you know, you were forced to use your imagination while playing with toys. And that was me. Sure boy was playing with toys back then. I collect toys now, you know, and I have a bunch of toys that I've collected, and I'm still collecting. I love, you know, I love seeing toys. I don't play with them anymore, but you know, I get a blast coming home and unwrapping the bag and be like, yeah, I got this toy. Look at this. Something that I knew back then I wouldn't be able to do so like um so easily now that I am an adult. But you know, never lose your imagination. If you have imagination, let it run wild. You know, if you're alone, make up a scenario. You know, if you're a dude, you know, and you wanted to always save the princess in the castle, let it run wild. You know, if you're a girl and you're alone, you know, and you want her to be Cinderella or any of the princesses, you know, go for it. Your knight in shining armor will always come home to you and treat you right. You know what I mean? So don't. Okay. In other words, you know, because imagination is so important to me, don't lose your creativity. You know, you don't have to be an artist to be creative. You don't have to be an artist to have a wild imagination. You don't have to play with your toys in order to have a vivid imagination. You know, you could do it. All right. If you feel like writing a book, write a book. If you feel like drawing what you think it's in your mind, but you're gonna be like, oh, but I can't draw. Like I always tell my friend, a complete drawing is just one line, you know, put together. If you could draw a stick figure, you can pretty much draw anything, right? If you can draw a circle, you're pretty much halfway there on drawing a face. But yes, don't lose your imagination. If if you if you how to put it, if you're having the dream, like in this story, you know, keep having the dream. You know, more power to you. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming. I really do appreciate it. You being here with me in this storytelling. By the way, if you see this episode, we are using our imagination right now that we're in front of a campfire reading all these stories. You know, so you're already halfway there. But yes, thank you guys for coming. I really do appreciate you being here with me in the campfire, surrounded by woods and the night, fresh air. You know, I really do, really do appreciate it. Um, you know, episode 14 is gonna come to an end soon, and we will be having episode 15 tomorrow. So, you know what else that doesn't take imagination? You not using your phone when you're driving. Nah, don't use your damn phone when you're driving, okay? That doesn't take a lot of imagination on what's gonna happen to you if you mess up. You know, you could hurt yourself. You can hurt others. You know, Jesus Christ, you can hit little Timmy. You can hit little uh, Jake, Samantha out there walking the street. Don't do that, man. Put your phones away while you drive. That's what I'm trying to say. And you know, be safe. All right, be safe. Okay, depending on how long we can manage to read this next story, this could be the last story, or um, it could be like, we'll probably do one more. It all depends. So here we go. The creepypasta called The Thief, written by Mika Edwards. It's an 8.8 out of 10 stars, and its runtime is 7 minutes. We will see about that. We call it The Thief. It was supposed to be a joke. We had a game, the group of us. It didn't really have a name. It was just a cryptic game. It was simple. Every time we got together, one of us had to share a monster story. That was basically it. We started it back in college and just sort of never stopped. There were more rules than that, of course. It had to be original. No more than one story introduced per get together. Whoever had the best monster was winning. All of these rules were unspoken, but we all understood them. They evolved over the years to create the friendly rival of the cryptic game. It kept us in touch, gave us something to talk about when we saw each other, and was always fun to hear someone else's reference your monster. Either way, in a new story or just in standard conversation. I made a bunch over the years, most of them ridiculous. The cord goblin, an obnoxious electrical creature that can travel through the wires, in which ties untainted cords into knots. The skulk, a gelatinous creature, the creature of seawater which lurks in the ocean and generates an unpleasant pulse you sometimes feel when you release. When you release, you have no idea what's below you. Helitas, a bent shadow which breathes into your mouth at night. I was rarely winning the game, but every time I went swimming in the deep, I thought about the skulk, and I knew the others did too. That was all I wanted out of the game, to give my friends the man, what if moment. The others took different approaches. Jennifer went with whatever news articles she happened to cross it at the time, spinning it into something unearthly. Alex, too, was all over the map, with no clear thread between any of the creatures. Rebecca, on the other hand, always started her stories the same way, deep in an unexplored jungle. She was big in lost tribes and creatures forgotten by time, less likely for anyone to think about on a daily basis than mine, but more likely to actually be real. Well, more possible anyway. Likely is a bit of stretch. Emmanuel liked insects, psionic beetles that lived in the roof beams of houses, putting out stressful emanations and feeding on the resultant fights and negative emotions from the families below. Not that laid eggs in tear ducts to so that the maggots could wiggle their way into the sinus cavity, hiding safely, feeding of the mucus until they grew into their adult form. His were usually good for a series shutter, more so if you had a particular vivid imagination. They weren't out of the realm of possibilities. Either bugs and parasites have some weird life cycles and some terrifying adaptations. And Connor liked predators. Big things, scary things, things that moved along amongst humans, hunting them. His creations were responsible for lost pets and missing children, the runaways. Like Rebecca, his story always started the same way. Ouch. So picture this. He had a rich Scottish accent, which somehow gave his monsters more vibrancy, more life. They were the least likely of our stories because they were the sort of monsters that someone had to have noticed by now. But you were alone in the darkness. Logic that didn't matter. That's where Connor's stories would always come back to haunt you. If he had a failing, it was that his cryptid never had a name. There were always just this thing, which left it up to the rest of us to name. we would invariably come up with the most ridiculous names we could think of uncutting the story. He told us one about an underground hive of man-sized wasps networked across miles. They would steal cavers and solitary hikers, dragging them down to serve them as foods and hosts for larvae. Connor was waxing eloquent about the hive structure when Rebecca suggested that we could call them the beasts thing. And we all broke up laughing. Even Connor stood 5 feet long about it. The Deef was another one of his, a fairly recent one. It was something like a giant boar. Ouch, picture this thing. Only with the grace and speed of a tiger. It stood 5 feet long at the shoulders, and the mouth could unhinge like a evade detection in order to scoop up its prey and capture the garnish caverns of night. Its size, it could slide undetected into forest areas, but as civilization expanded, it found richer urban hiding grounds in cities. It evaded detection, Connor told us, at night, speed of when it was dark, sleekness of motion. When it's dark, size, it could slide undetected into alleys behind cars. In any the most terrifying thing about it, although, was that it absorbed sound. Things grew quieter slept during the day when and haunted at night, dripping when it was dark, silence. When it's dark, coated, you might never a camouflage see it coming, but you could. The most terrifying thing about it, though, was that it absorbed sound. Things grew quieter, even when it's nearby, dripping to utter silence in mimicking Connor's immediate presence. You might never see it coming, but Connor rolled his eyes but you would know it was there. Fine. The Deef. Right before it took you, call it whatever name you like. You won't be calling it anything when it comes for you. I asked, absorb the name Connor's brogue, and Rebecca exclaimed, the Deef was one of the best eyes at us and smiled strongly. I could picture its thick, bristly fur. Call it whatever name you like. You won't be calling it anything when it comes to you. I could even visualize absorb the name or not. Its flanks, though, the Deef would have one of the best ones as it ran me strongly. I could picture it silent down the street, bristly sidewalk, and perceived bloody snout that had no reason to look behind. Lower jaw. No idea that I could even visualize there the way all. Its flanks kept me looking over my shoulder for would have after Connor introduced it. As it ran. It wasn't just me either. Streaking silent down the street, confessed that he started using his flashlight in the walk. Had no reason to look behind. On the walk from his car no idea that apartment anything was there at all. The Deef kept me looking over my shoulder for weeks. I don't really think it's there, obviously, he told us. But it wasn't just me then either. Again, it doesn't cost me anything to turn on my phone. He started using his flashlight in the walk. And that was on the walk from his car. Obviously, it was real, but at night, alone in the dark. What if? In one of the shadows. That was the fun of the cryptid game. It's there, obviously, he told us. But except that the other night, I was texting with Alex while she was walking home from the corner store. That was exactly it. Obviously, it was real out here. But at night, alone in the city is so different at night. Yeah, that was the fun of the cryptid whole different animal. Once everyone except that the other night, it's even quieter than usual. Alex, while she was walking home from the corner store. Yeah. Bunch of shadows too. Could definitely be a Deef around. The city is so different at night. Good luck. Yeah, I sent back. Whole different animal. Nice knowing once everyone goes to sleep. It's even quieter than usual. That was a few days ago. Emmanuel called me yesterday morning to ask when I'd last talked to Alex too. I checked my phone and saw that it was the last conversation we had. Good luck. Yeah, no one has heard from her since then, he said, sounding worried. I'm going out to look for her. That was a few days ago. Work today. Emmanuel called me yesterday morning to ask go from when I last talked to the bodega. I checked my phone and saw that it was the last conversation we had. Yeah, what are we looking for? Heard I don't know. Anything she's missing. Assuring him I'd help. After work, we met up at her apartment and started walking. I still had no idea what I was looking for. The streets looked like streets. There was trash, graffiti, paint, dirt, the usual. What are we Emmanuel and I did a slow walk to the store, scanning every alley as we went. By the time we reached the store, the sun had dropped behind the building. I still had no idea now what? Asked Emmanuel. Check again on the way back, I guess. I see if we missed anything. I thought about pointing out that if we hadn't seen anything earlier, we certainly weren't going to. We certainly weren't going to now. That was dark. That it was darker. Check again on the way back. He had a desperate look on his face, so I shut up and started to walk back. I thought
Halfway
about
there,
pointing out
I still
that
hadn't
if
seen
we
any
hadn't
sign.
seen
Emmanuel
anything
started
earlier,
shouting
we
out to
certainly
the alley,
weren't going
to the alleys.
we
Alex,
certainly weren't going to now.
what are you
That
doing?
was dark.
Maybe
That it
she's
was
hurt.
darker.
I don't know.
But
Alex,
he had a desperate
shut
look on
up!
his face.
Someone
So
yelled
I
from
shut
an
up and
apartment
started to
above us,
walk
and
away.
I hushed
Halfway
Emmanuel
there,
on.
I still hadn't seen any
At the
sign.
next alley,
Emmanuel started shouting out.
At the next
To the
alley,
alley.
though, he
To the
called out
alleys.
after for her
Alex,
again. Alex!
what are you
There's
doing?
no
Maybe
answer.
she's hurt. I don't
Obviously,
know. Alex,
even he knew that
shut
there
up.
wouldn't
Someone
be.
yelled
It was
from
written
an
on his
apartment
face.
above us, and I hushed
This went on for a few
Emmanuel on.
blocks, with only two
At
more
the next
blocks
alley-
to go.
At the
Emmanuel's
next
shouts
alley,
were
though,
starting
he
to
called
sound
out
hopeless.
for her again.
Alex! He called out,
There's no
but he was
answer.
barely even
Obviously,
bothering to raise his
even
voice.
he knew that there
Maybe
wouldn't
we
be.
can.
It was written
I
on his
began to
face.
stop dead.
This
I could
went on
barely
for a
hear
few
my own
blocks,
voice.
only two more
Emmanuel and I
blocks
turned
to go.
towards each other,
Emmanuel's
and
shouts
the
were
same
starting to
realization
sound
hitting both of
hopeless.
us.
Alex,
Emmanuel,
he called out,
what?
but he was barely even
I
bothering
saw
to
it
raise his voice.
then, looming out of
Maybe
the
we
alley
can-
behind
I
him,
began to stop
like a
dead.
striking
I could barely
snake.
hear my
It
own
came
voice.
from nowhere,
Emmanuel and I
seeming
turned
to
towards
rise
each
out of the
other,
bricks
and
themselves,
the
standing
same
nearly as
realization
tall
hitting
as
both
it
of
is,
us.
its mouth already
Emmanuel,
gaping open in
what?
anticipation of its meal. Its
I saw
hooves,
it
feet
then, looming
skims
out of the alley
silently
behind
across the
him,
ground
like a
as it
striking
raced
snake.
towards us.
It came from
I tried to
nowhere.
call out to warn
Seeming to
Emmanuel to
rise out of
move,
the
but
bricks
no
themselves,
sound emerged
standing
from my
nearly
throat.
as tall as
It took
is, its
Emmanuel
mouth
behind the
already
trees,
gaping open
knocking
in
him over
anticipation
the
of its
land,
meal.
flailing in
hooves,
its massive
feet,
mouth.
skins,
Powerful muscles flexed,
silently
and the
across
jawed
ground as it
pouch
raced towards us.
closed
I tried to
around
call
him.
out to warn Emmanuel
It
to move,
convulsed,
but no sound emerged from my
crushing
throat.
and grinding
It took
Emmanuel
Emmanuel
inside.
behind trees,
I could see the
knocking him
bulge
over
from
the
his
land,
body
flailing
that
in its massive
distended
mouth,
its
powerful muscles
gullet.
flexed, and the jawed
It
pouch
swallowed,
closed
and the throat
around him.
tinged,
It
swallowed
convulsed,
again, and it grew smaller.
crushing and
Still,
grinding
a third
Emmanuel
time,
inside.
and it was
I
back
could
to
see
normal.
the bulge
It had
from his
consumed
body
Emmanuel in
that
seconds.
distended
He was gone. Not even a drop of blood remained.
and
And all of this happened in total horrible silence.
Still, a third
Its meal
time,
finished,
and it
the
was
thief
back to
lowered its
normal.
head and looked
It
at me
had
directly
consumed
in my
Emmanuel in
eyes.
seconds.
I saw hunger there,
was gone.
but after a moment of,
Not even a drop of blood
regard, it
remained.
melted away into the alley.
And all
I
of
never
this
blinked,
happened in
but
total
still I lost sight of it
horrible
within seconds.
silence.
I don't remember how I got
Its
home
meal
last
finished,
night. I don't know
thief
why
lowered
the
its
thief
head
let me
and
go
looked
at
at
all,
me directly in
but
my
I
eyes.
remember the look in
I
those
saw hunger
eyes,
there,
and
but
I
after a
know
moment of
that I've been
of
marked.
regard, it
The sun
melted
dropped
away
in the
into
sky
alley.
again. I have
Never
every light
blinked,
on
but
already.
still, I
The
lost
door
sight
is
of it
locked,
within
and the huge beast,
I don't remember how I got
it's a
home
huge
last
beast,
night. I don't know why the thief
surely
let me
can
go
get
at
in
all,
there.
but I remember
The city
look in
gets
those
quieter
eyes, and I know
at night.
that I've been marked. The sun dropped in the sky again. I
Credit
had
goes
every light
to
on almost.
Mika
The door is
Edwards.
locked, and the huge beast
You know, right here has the official website, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit,
can get in
and
there.
all that good stuff. And she has other books too, or other stories. Fright Bites, Radioactivity, The Reluctant Superhero, and all that good stuff.
Right here has the
I think
official
that's all
website,
hers.
Amazon, Facebook,
So,
Twitter, Reddit,
hey, pretty good story. I actually enjoyed that one.
or other stories.
Oh man, just
Fright
imagine if you would,
Radioactivity,
if your monster would come to life.
superhero, and all that good stuff.
Wow, maybe the dude that made up the thief actually seen it, you know?
Enjoy that one.
Because towards the end we don't actually hear from the rest of the crew, right? So I'm guessing that Emmanuel and the protagonist of the story are the last two alive, you know? So everybody else died to the thief, and we are the protagonist is pretty much the last one to go, you know? So oof, that was good. That was a good one. So, thank you guys for coming. I really do appreciate it. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you can do so. The links will be in the description below. You know, last day. If you guys have any stories to share, you know, send them over my Twitter and on the comments down below. Like the video, and yeah, you know, like I said before, don't let your imagination die out. Keep it going. All right. Just, you know, you're adults, but that doesn't mean you always have to be one, you know? And so, when dust settles in and the moon begins to quail the sun, remember to always look behind you. Until the next one. Peace out, everybody.